Hey, Brandon here with Flycraft, and I'm going to give you a quick little rundown on our Stealth X. So the Stealth X we launched a couple years ago, and it really filled the gap between our classic two-man Stealth, such as the Stealth Fisherman package, and then our 14-foot guide boat. Now the Stealth X is 12 feet long, like the Stealth, so you don't need to transport it on a trailer. You can, but it rides on the roof of a car like a Subaru, SUV, bed of a truck, no problem. Although it's 12 feet long, it's probably a little bit more similar to our guide boat. It really has pretty much the exact same frame as our guide boat. Really the biggest difference is the back of the boat is a little bit shorter. This boat comes standard as a two-seater. To make it a three-seater, what you'll do is add the gear rack and the third seat component with the optional rear lean bar. Now, that third seat on this boat actually mounts to the gear rack. It's on a quick release, so if you don't have 3 people with you that day, you just press a lever, the third seat comes off. Kind of a perfect hybrid because people always wanted to fit 3 people in one of our boats, but 14 footers don't work for everyone. The boat is 132 pounds, 12 feet long, 56 inches wide. So it is 10 inches wider than our classic two-man Stealth. It also has slightly bigger tubes, so it has 16-inch tubes versus 14. One nice feature about this boat as well is it's also a self-bailer. If you're not familiar with self-bailing, basically if water comes in the boat, whether it's rain, rapids, wading boots, wet dog, whatever, it's gonna drain out on its own. Now we put a lot of time into designing this self-bailing system. I know there's videos from years ago where I don't have the best opinion of self-bailing boats, and I was very vocal about that, which is why we didn't adopt any existing self-bailing technology and we designed our own. I'm happy to say with this system, you have the benefits of self-bailing without the disadvantages that sometimes come with self-bailing boats. They historically can be more sluggish, they don't track as well, and we've kind of eliminated those problems. So if you get this boat set up as a two-seater, it does come standard with that front leg lock. What I like about our lean bar system in the front is, unlike a lot of rafts where it's simply just a bar, ours is modeled after drift boats. So you have those molded leg locks, which is really helpful for when you're standing and leaning forward, but we find we're often standing sideways. You can just lock one leg in, which is really nice. So it's a lot more secure. It is removable, so if you ever want to take it off, you can. Like I mentioned before, if you want to make it a 3-seater, you just add the gear rack and the third seat. If you add the rear lean bar, it just simply bolts on. It's also easy to remove. A lot of people have some confusion on spacing in this boat. They think that if they get the guide model, they're going to have more room for the anglers, and that's actually not really true. The third seat in this boat really has just about as much room for a third angler as there is in the guide model. So although it's 2 feet shorter, really the difference is the third seat mounting to the gear rack versus the guide model where the gear rack sits behind it. Now, we also have a really nice rod holder system for this boat. It holds 3 fly rods. It also holds conventional spin style rods as well. You can get it without the gear rack, but it definitely pairs better with the gear rack because we have a bracket on the underside of the gear rack that holds the tubes. We designed our rod holder so that you can easily access the rods whether you're sitting in the rower seat or the front seat of the boat. We designed our boat to accommodate people of all heights. Since the oar-lock arms are adjustable, you can mount them in various different positions with the hole pattern on the frame, as well as slide the seat forward or back. It doesn't matter if you're 5'2" or 6'8", you're gonna be able to adjust this in a comfortable place for rowing. So as I was mentioning, this boat is 10 inches wider than our regular Stealth. And a lot of people look at our boats and say, these are narrow, is it a stable boat? And I think all of our boat models are very, very stable. If you've ever fished in our skinnier two-man boat, I think you'll be surprised how stable it really is. I think for lack of a better term, the Stealth X here, as well as the Guide, have more foolproof stability. Being 10 inches wider with slightly bigger tubes does mean that when you're in pushier currents, you can get away with more. So I don't have people calling me, telling me they're flipping their boat over. When they do, it's normally an embarrassing story. You know, things happen, but this is a very surprisingly stable boat. Although it looks narrow, it's very stable. And part of that is since we do have smaller tubes, compared to a lot of whitewater rafts that might be 20, 22-inch tubes, we actually have a similar flat bottom width as a lot of those boats with bigger tubes. Even though it's a narrower boat, the smaller tubes allow you to have more flat bottom. So like all of our boat models, this Stealth X comes with our internally run anchor system, comes standard with the 2-to-1 mechanical advantage. A few things I like about this is, one, 2-to-1 mechanical advantage means when you're lifting a 25-pound anchor, it feels like half the weight. When you're out floating all day, lifting that anchor can get tiring. That helps you out a lot. Another thing is it gives you a completely centered anchor point. Now, you can undo this 2-to-1 system if you want. I don't recommend that for river use because then you're not going to have a centered anchor point. But if you're out on a lake and you want twice the depth, because you have about 20 feet of anchor line with the 2-to-1, so you'll have roughly about 40 if you undo that. So if you're fishing still water, you can certainly undo that system and have more anchorability. As I mentioned, it is an internally run system. So one thing that's critical in a small boat is keeping it really clean. Line management, we don't want any more excuses than we already have for missing a fish. So tangling your fly line on external pulleys running through the frame can be really annoying. We've eliminated that by running the anchor system through the frame. I also heard a story recently where someone's dog's tail got stuck in someone's anchor system because it was externally run. So we've eliminated that. It makes it safer for you, your dogs, and ultimately one less excuse for losing a fish. Now, although you probably see, we probably spend most of our time fishing rivers. We do fish lakes a lot, and a lot of our customers do as well. This boat is really great for small streams, big rivers, lakes, oceans, ponds, and everything in between. I sell a lot of these boats to people on the Texas coast for chasing redfish, even Florida. So whether you're rowing or motoring, it's gonna perform much better than pretty much any other inflatable, once again, because it is narrower. So it's streamlined, it tracks really well. Another unique thing about the Stealth X, and really all of our boat models, as you may know, we have what's called a drop stitch floor. We love the advantage of the inflatables. We can drag it down the bank, bounce it off rocks, access rivers and remote still waters that we couldn't with a hard boat. But a lot of rafts have a squishy floor, which can be fatiguing. It also makes a not row as well. If you've ever seen those inflatable stand-up paddle boards, we have modeled our floor off of that. So the drop stitching basically are thousands of stitching fibers. They really look like floss that attaches the top and bottom of the floor together. What that allows us to do is add a lot more air pressure to the floor than we can in the tubes. Now the tubes are gonna feel firm to your touch, but if you were standing on them, they're gonna have more give. When you put the appropriate amount of air pressure in this floor, it literally feels like you're standing on a board. But in this boat, you have 6 inches of more buoyancy. So we're gonna ride higher than a drift boat, tends to be about a 3 to 4 inch draft. And you don't need to worry about building out a floor platform because the floor is already rigid. So since we cater these boats and these frame builds specifically for fishing, whether you're fly fishing or conventional fishing, a clean design for line management is really important. So we put a lot of thought into that. So there's really nothing in this boat that's easy to snag your line on. Another thing about it is, since it is a small boat, storage is really essential. So that's why we have that gear rack. Now, if you only have 2 people in the boat, that gear rack is free for whatever you want to put. You know, I probably have some more essential items, maybe a cooler with some beverages, my fishing bag, that type of thing stored underneath the seat, or the seats, I should say, and that front seat is elevated so that you can fit most coolers and boat bags or boxes underneath there. But the gear rack's a great place for some of those non-essentials. You might bring a grill along. You're certainly gonna have a dry bag with a first aid kit, rain gear, cold weather gear, that type of stuff. So for the items that I'm accessing, you know, maybe only once throughout the day, or I bring along hoping not to use, like a rain jacket, the gear rack's really great for that. But you do, like I said, have storage space under both seats as well, and even under the third seat if you put it on the gear rack. Now, a lot of people wonder if they're mounting the third seat, do they lose all their gear rack storage? You certainly lose some. You're not gonna have that bigger cooler back there. But as you can see here, even with the third seat on it, there's plenty of room for some dry bags, a soft cooler, that type of thing. Now, oftentimes when we're fishing, we find ourselves in some pretty rough spots. We're dragging the boat down the banks, bumping into logs, rocks, that type of thing. And some people have concerns with inflatables for that. Inflatables have been around for a really long time for really rugged use like that, and that's certainly what we built this boat to do. And we reinforce the bottom of the boat. The entire bottom is 2 layers of 1100 denier PVC. But we really find most of the brunt of the abuse happens on the corners on the bottom of the boat. So on all 4 corners, we actually have it reinforced with 2 more layers. So each corner is 4 layers thick, and those patches are certainly meant to get wear. But like I said, the whole bottom of the boat's 2 layers, and you also have 5 separate air chambers. It's probably not gonna be a rock or a stick that causes you to spring a leak. It pretty much never is, but I've been guilty of putting a knife through the boat before. It's embarrassing, but things happen. And if you do ever puncture the boat's not sinking on you because you have 5 separate air chambers. Just like the boat itself is very durable, the frame is as well. And we actually hand build these frames along with pretty much all the accessories. So we put a lot of time with quality control and just overall fishability and durability of the frame. So we build our frames out of aluminum. They're all welded here in Salt Lake City. Then we actually powder coat them as well. Since it's powder coated and we use all stainless steel hardware, this boat's fine for saltwater use. It holds up really well. Just like anything else in the salt, you want to hose it down after use, but the PVC raft and the frame itself are good to go. So as you can see here, we build all of our boat models with a lot of rocker, more so than most other rafts. Now, rocker is this lift that's in the bow and stern of the boat. This is a huge advantage when you're running rivers with swift currents. If you're navigating boulder gardens, trying to ferry across a river, this rocker allows the water to rush under the boat a lot easier. It also means that although it's a 12-foot boat, it handles like a shorter boat because we have less boat in the water. You still have the usable space inside the boat for storage and standing and fishing, but you ultimately have less boat in the water. Something that people often don't think about with rocker as well is it helps a ton with anchorability. So a lot of rafts don't have as much of the rocker, so when you're trying to drop anchor, the current is pushing against the back of the boat, which means you might not hold anchor where you wanted to, and you might need a much heavier anchor to do this. So when you drop anchor with our 2-to-1 system, the water's just gonna rush under the boat and it's gonna hold a lot better than most, which is why a lot of people are surprised we only use a 25-pound pyramid anchor, whether I'm on a fast river like the Madison or Snake, or some slow river like the Henry's Fork. So one thing we've always aimed to do since the get-go when we launched our very first stealth boat about 10 years ago or so is solve transportation issues for people. Getting a boat can be overwhelming for some people. Storage space, how they're gonna transport it, they might need to buy a truck and trailer to move it. So you can put it on a trailer, and I do that sometimes, but it'll also just fit in the back of the truck. Even if you have a short bed truck, with the tailgate down, you'll be supporting more than half the length of the boat. So you can get one of those tailgate hitch extenders, but you really don't even need to. Another thing is, it'll go on the roof of a Subaru, fully inflated, assembled. A lot of people wonder, they're like, well, can I drive on the highway with it? Absolutely. I mean, I'll drive from Salt Lake City to Bozeman, 80 plus miles an hour the whole way for 6 hours, and it transports fine up there. So you can get it on the roof of a Subaru, SUVs, back of a truck, but you can also even break it down if you want. You certainly can break the frame down completely, which is very popular for people with smaller cars, or especially RVs, campers, that type of thing. You also can choose to just split the frame maybe in half or in thirds. Another thing that I like to do a lot is, if I don't feel like breaking the frame down, I'll just take a few seconds to unstrap the frame from the raft itself. I'll put the frame up on the roof of a vehicle. I mean, you can get it up there, the frame itself alone, even on like a tall SUV, like a 4Runner or something. Get it up there, strap it down, deflate and roll the boat, put it in the trunk. Now you're not really affecting your gas mileage much, and you don't need to spend much time with assembly. Not that it's really that hard to assemble anyways. The Stealth X, along with all of our boat models, can be paired with a motor if you want. My favorite, and the one that we offer, is the Honda 2.3 horsepower. This boat is rated up to as high as a 3.5 horse if you want. Electric motors are also a very popular option. So thank you for taking the time to learn more about the Stealth X. We also have a lot more resources on our website. Social media is a great place to look as well. But as always, you can always reach out to me via email or phone.